And I think we'll start right there because we can get into some of the changes. We're not going to shy away from anything that's happened this offseason. Peter Bendix, the Miami Marlins president of baseball operations, is going to join us in about 20 minutes. There's a ton to get to. We'll talk about the changes. We're going to talk to Peter about what this adjustment's been like for him over the course of the last couple of days. There's so much good stuff to highlight. Luis Arraez is up to win a Silver Slugger.
Yep.
Skip Schumacher is up to win the National League Manager of the Year. Bell's back in. Soler is out. The club option on John Birdie has been picked up. Look, there's so much to talk about. But the first thing I do want to do is reminisce a little bit.
Yep.
Because I think it's fair to work our way backwards before we really start to look toward what is 2024. The baseball season does not sleep. And we don't have a whole lot of time to reminisce, but let's start right there as we've been about a month removed from the conclusion of the 2023 season. As you think about it, what really sticks out to you?
Yeah, I think the resiliency. I think there were so many hurdles throughout the season with injuries, with guys going down, with just different situations. I mean, it all led up to that weekend in Pittsburgh, Kyle. It was very symbolic of the entire season. That night in New York where we sat there and waited on a rain delay and waited, didn't get to Pittsburgh until 4 or 5 in the morning.
Absolute out for blood with those Mets, by the way.
I know. And I thought that really captured, if you're a Marlins fan, it just made sense that's how it would, or that's what it would take to get into the postseason. But I think looking back, it was a resiliency. 84 wins. It's a 15-win improvement from last season. 80-plus wins for the first time since 2009. First-year manager Skip Schumacher, what a phenomenal job that he did. I think the resiliency from not only the managers to the players, I thought it was a resilient 2023 that, of course, ended pretty quickly in Philadelphia. They lost to a really good Philadelphia Phillies team. But the big picture is this, Kyle. There's not a lot of people that expected Miami to be in that spot. Now, like Skip Schumacher said in his final presser of the 2023 season, we now have a standard. And it's up to our players to protect the standard, and they now understand what winning looks like. And I think that's really important to have that.
Let me ask you this, because I think about it often. The players believed a lot earlier than I did, than we did, than the fans did. But when do you think they believed?
I think the Soler walk-off against the Washington Nationals, I think that was a huge turning point. Because remember, the Marlins, it was kind of like they had lost 3 out of 4 against the Mets.
Yeah.
They then took 2 out of 3 against the Twins. They kind of were like floating. I thought that game against Washington, where the Marlins were down a run going into the 9th inning, and this was all with 2 outs, by the way.
May 16th to get them to 500.
To get them to 500. It was 3-2, and I remember this was with 2 outs. Garrett Cooper had ripped a double. And it was Jorge Soler who hit a 2-run walk-off home run.
He assaulted that baseball.
Yes, he did. And that was really, I thought not only, let me tell you this, I thought not only that was the time that the Marlins believed, but that was also the big breakthrough with the GoPro. I know you hate talking about yourself, but that was the big breakthrough where it was like, okay, we're having some fun here. And it was against Hunter Harvey, by the way.
That was a bit of a breakthrough, but they did end up a couple of weeks later when we were in Colorado, and that was the bad boy thing, but whatever. They were 25-26 in Colorado. It wasn't until they went to Anaheim and swept that series against Trout and Ohtani that they got to 500, and that's when they didn't look back. But I think they believed a lot earlier than a lot of other people did, and something that we talked about all season long. I think the belief stemmed from a culture that was put in place in February.
Yep.
I have said this so many times that if people are going to pay money to watch you, their attitude was that we're not going to embarrass ourselves, we're not going to embarrass you, and we're going to give the organization and the fans of this great franchise something to be proud of, right? So that comes back to Skip, who obviously and deservedly so is up for National League Manager of the Year. You just go back and take a look at everything that transpired. The 33 one-run victories, 41 come-from-behind wins, improbably, some of them so late. The 9 walk-off victories at home, you could go and detail all those. They were all dramatic, it felt like, in some way, shape, or form. Bottom line is that the organization has a lot to build off of.
Yep.
I thought it was great news the other day that Josh Bell is back in the mix.
Massive.
Right?
Massive.
So Bell and Arise and Chisholm, Sanchez, De La Cruz, Berger, who's there for the long haul. There's a lot of questions to be answered. I think I want to get into that a little bit later. I don't know how much time we have here in the first segment.
We need to do this for 3 hours.
No, sir. We'll do it 1 hour once a week. Don't get carried away.
Okay.
But 1 hour every Tuesday moving forward. So we're going to be live on Fox Sports 940. If we're not now, then we're talking to ourselves. We're pretty sure we're on the air. On the iHeartRadio app, and we're going to flip it to a podcast page when we can. We're going to put all the GoPro footage up from the shows. I know people have missed us, and they certainly want to see us, so we're going to put that on the YouTube page. But nonetheless, an incredible, incredible season. It culminates in a playoff appearance, the first one in the full season in 20 years. And I think the bottom line is that there's a lot to build off of. Now, how can they do it in 2024 is going to be the question.
This is how it starts, though, Kyle. I mean, very, very seldom do you have teams that they're like one-hit wonders, unless you're just buying, and you're trying to go all in for 1 year. And I'm talking just not about baseball. I'm talking about all of sports, really. You have to have a starting point, right? And just like I think I'm thinking college football right now. Usually you bring in a head coach, and he has to establish his culture. Then he brings his guys, his recruits, whatever it may be. And that's where it starts. And I think for 2023, this was a tremendous starting point for Miami to, again, feel what it's like to win. And now you have a manager in Skip Schumacher who has more experience. He's coming back with year 2. He has a chance here to, obviously work with a great new president of baseball operations who we're going to have on the show later on. But I couldn't have dreamt, and I know you probably couldn't have either, about a better first year for you in your position, for me and mine for 2023. And really, this was all new to all of us. Like, for Skip, it was new. For a lot of the players, for the first time in Miami. But to experience this together, it really did at times, with the comebacks, with the moments, the cycle. It did kind of feel like a fairy tale at some point. Like, this was special. This isn't normal.
It at times felt improbable.
Yeah.
And every time it felt improbable, they continued to find a way to win, which I think is where that word special comes in. It's just every time they were down and out, there's no way they're winning this one tonight. The cards are stacked against them. They're not going to find a way to win it. And more often than not, they probably believed a lot more than we did, self-admittedly, and they would find a way to come back and win. So 2023, incredible. Now let's get to a little bit, and we don't have a whole lot of time here, but we have to acknowledge what has transpired since the conclusion of the season. That has seen the former general manager, Kim Eng, not pick up her part of the mutual option with the organization. So the Marlins currently do not have a general manager. I look forward to asking Peter Bendix coming up shortly if his intention is to hire one. So Kim Eng has departed the organization. A couple of other noteworthy names to note, though. DJ Svillick, who joined the club in 2017, he ended his tenure as the senior director of amateur scouting, and Adrian Lorenzo ended his tenure as the senior director of international operations. So we're talking international operations, a gentleman who was leading the charge in terms of drafting. You no longer have a general manager. Peter Bendix just spent 15 years with the Tampa Bay Rays organization. He now comes over, and he is going to be tasked with assembling a baseball operations department, and there are many, many wonderful and terrific people there, but obviously there's positions that need to be filled.
Yep.
And it's a unique spot where you're not coming off a disastrous season
Bingo.
and where you feel like you need a full-blown rebuild. How can Peter Bendix, working with the Rays, which is never an easy task, and they are a contender every single year, how does he now put this thing together in Miami and try to capitalize and work off the success that they had last year?
Yeah, I think the most interesting part about all this is, again, you're hiring a guy in Peter Bendix that is coming from Tampa and a similar market and similar situation coming into Miami. But the biggest difference is a lot of times you're off a disappointing season. You're coming off a season where you lost a lot of games and you hire a new GM. That's not the case here for Miami. They're bringing in a guy in Peter Bendix who's been with the Rays since 2009. He's been involved in amateur scouting, research, pro scouting. Because the front office was so small, he was able to get his hands dirty in multiple different facets